we've called this self-healing, shadow work. Talked about the dark night of the soul, when something of an epiphany hits you, but it's the epiphany of like, oh my God, I've been wrong this whole time. And, you know, now I have to deal with all of that, and kind of giving yourself time to, you know, love and time to heal from that hit of the wake up.
Yeah, and it's tough because it's like you don't know how to be in the world. And I wrote a whole book about this, everybody. Go to shadowworked.com. We'll put a link down below and you could check that book out. It's 1111 for that book. If you want to give me a donation, I'll send you the PDF in the EPUB. But a lot of people talk about, you hear this word shadow work and dark night of the soul. They're like everywhere now. It's kind of like a cool thing to say. And but it really is it's funny because talking about like being a victor not a victim, it's really what happens is I feel like, so you're going along doing your thing, you're doing it till it's done, you don't even realize that you're doing it till it's done, right? And then you have this moment where you're like, oh man, I can't believe I've been living this way, I want to change my behavior, this isn't really who I am. You have like an ego death. You realize that maybe you've been acting this way in the world because you had this hole in your soul and you're trying to fill it with all kinds of sense pleasure experiences. And then you realize that. And so now this sense pleasure experience that you were formerly engaging in, it just doesn't fulfill it anymore. It's like empty and hollow because you realize what you've been doing. So you're stuck in this place, kind of like a caterpillar when he goes into a cocoon. You're locked in, and now you really don't know how to act in the world, and you don't know how to be, and you're kind of trying to formulate your behavior, and you're becoming a new person. You're growing this new skin, right? This new exterior. And I feel like in there, the victimhood slips in. It could slip in because then you're like, why did this happen to me? Or I'm just stuck. What do I do? How do I be in the world? So you're kind of overcoming that. So I think the dark night of the soul is could be even said to be overcoming your newly found victim status. And then when you figure it out and you have a new way to be in the world and you realize that you're not a victim, I feel like that's when you truly come out of it and you become another person. You kind of level up to a certain extent. It really just raise your
Yeah.
consciousness is what you're doing, because what's going on is you had this consciousness you didn't know before, that whatever you're doing running around, you didn't realize it was hurting other people. And then when you come to that realization that you're hurting others with your behavior and that's not what you want to do, you got a little enlightenment. Your consciousness just went up a little bit. You aligned your actions and your behavior with truth a little more. And so I feel like when you actually realize that's what you've done, that's the next step, and then you can really incorporate this thing that you're not a victim into your life. That's when it takes on a whole new you take on a whole new perspective and a worldview, and you realize that all of us are just flowing along. We're kind of just we're products of our own environment and our circumstances and everything that's happened to us. A lot of us are just running these programs off, and when you realize that, that's when you can truly wake up. And people will say they woke up. Oh, I woke up. But really, I think what happens is they fall into another trap, and you just
Mm-hmm.
keep falling into different traps. I woke up to the truther thing, and I realized that 7-Eleven isn't always open 24 hours a day. And it could be an inside job to work at 7-Eleven or, whatever. And the government's evil and George Bush did it. Well, now you're just in another trap, right? You're blaming George Bush for all your problems. When that guy, he just likes to party, man. He's probably a legend. I mean, I wish I was in Yale and Bush was there. I would have been his boy, like Bush. But if you take that point of view, then that loses all its power over you, because what people don't realize is if you think the government or there's evil cabal running the world, you're giving them your power. You're giving them the power to do that, right? So they're not
Yeah,
running my
absolutely.
life. They didn't make me do this podcast, and
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Yeah,
went
and
hiking in the
what
woods yesterday.
yeah, what I would just add to that is that, you might not just have one dark night of the soul. Like, Brandon says, you just kind of level up when you do. So you might have multiple over your lifetime, this lifetime.
And
So
could it be that's what this life is about? If you want, if you if you come to the conclusion that this life is about raising your consciousness, well,
mhm.
then it is about falling into other traps every time. But if you don't see it as a trap and you change that word trap as challenge, then you just took away a little victim. You're like, oh, I didn't fall into another trap. There's another challenge. I'm like
It's a
Super
little
Mario.
hurdle.
I rescued the princess, and oh, nope, sorry, your princess is at another castle. You got this one.
Oops.
You set her
Next.
free. Now you have the skill. You know how to throw the fireball. A lot better. You can jump and, but I
Jump
really
over that
feel like
hurdle.
that's what it is, right? Up until the next hurdle, exactly. All these hurdles, and then like we said earlier in this episode, you're pointing at other people's hurdles when you're calling out other people's bad behaviors. It's like, well, yeah, but what about
Mhm.
your own hurdles?